to order the Lake County Budget Commission meeting for Monday, August 7th. Time is 11:01. This is our statutorily required meeting. Let's start with roll call.
Treasurer Michael Zone.
Present. Present.
Prosecutor Charles E. Fulton.
Here.
Present. Okay, our next item on the agenda is the minutes that were previously distributed. Does anybody have any changes or corrections to what was previously presented to you from the February 22nd meeting?
Move to approve.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'll pass this along for your signature. I'm not aware of any old business. And then that will move us into new business. The first item on our agenda is setting the 2024 political subdivision tax budgets hearing date. I want to recommend that take place. It has to obviously statutorily take place by the 31st of the month. However, my office does need a few days to do some work after that. So I'm proposing Monday, August 21st. Can you look at your calendar and see how that looks for you? Thinking 10? Or for you, Will?
Yeah, 10 o'clock is good.
Okay. So we'll set that, the next meeting of the Budget Commission, and that'll be the political subdivision tax budget hearings. And that will take place on August 21st at 10 a.m. I will check on the location. We will make public notice as always. I will try to reconvene us in the assembly room in Building C, which we normally meet in. We're meeting here today because the Board of Elections has that taken over for training and other things currently. So we needed a room big enough for the expected crowd that we see here today, full of dignitaries. So I will let everybody know on the location, but it'll be here at the county building somewhere. Okay, our next item on the agenda is the local government formula. I'm guessing that's why you're all here? Considering that we almost have anybody for this particular meeting, setting the meeting dates. So let me just run down some, just a little background and then how I'm going to handle this. You all received a copy of the memo from Prosecutor Colson in his office regarding a question that was made of his office by Commissioner Hammercheck regarding the fund. He has issued his opinion on that, and that was why we decided that it would be important to distribute it. And then we already had a meeting scheduled today, which was a statutorily designated meeting. So I thought it was best that we raise this issue, or at least discuss the memo and allow all of you the opportunity to ask questions or to weigh in. What I'm going to do is open up the podium for any elected official or a representative of a community to be able to speak. There is no general public discussion or debate. So if you are not an elected official or a representative of one of the designated representatives of one of these local government entities, that we're not carving out time for any sort of general public comment. I'll let Chuck get into the memo itself if he wants to. Again, my opinion on this is what I would do is I'm going to ask Chuck formally at this meeting to submit his memo to the Attorney General for their review, and because what we have in essence is one man's legal opinion. And that's not to downplay Chuck and his office's acumen, but this is obviously a major thing, and I don't feel that we should be taking any particular action as of this time. And specifically myself as the auditor, my office are charged with distributing the local government fund based on a formula, and I have no reason at this time to change that formula from the existing alternative formula that's been in place since 1982. So I can speak for myself in terms of my office. I am not in 2024 going to change the way we distribute the local government fund to all of you. First and foremost, from a practicality standpoint, there is not enough time for us to put that in place by September 29th. The statutory formula, which would go into place with lack of a alternative formula. So from a practicality standpoint, I don't believe that I'm in any way prepared to put any other type of formula in place, specifically the state statutory formula. So from that standpoint, for those who have that as their first and foremost concern, that 2024 we're looking at something different than what we've been used to, I am going to proceed with the existing alternative formula for 2024. And so just to kind of give you where I'm at. Chuck, I'll let you discuss specifically your memo.
As Mr. Galloway said, I was asked to review the status of the local government fund alternate formula. We spent quite a bit of time reviewing this memo. We knew it would be a very hot legal topic and concern for the county. It would make, whatever opinion we came up with, it would make some municipalities happy and some municipalities unhappy. But we spent a lot of time and worked very hard on it. But it is an opinion. It, I think, is a very well-researched opinion. I think it's the most likely the correct opinion. But it is an opinion, and that's all it is. We have already, meaning our office, has already started preparing. It'll take us another week or so. We're going to ask the Attorney General to review this and give their opinion also. But really, that's just going to be another opinion. We aren't really going to know the answer until there's some litigation, until the court, until the judge, and most likely the tax court makes a decision. So once the tax court makes a decision, and it could go all the way up to the Supreme Court, once the courts make a decision, then we would know what the ultimate legal answer is. But spending the time, and you all have the memo, you've read it, I don't need to go into the details of it. It was not done quickly. It was done with a lot of work, a lot of research by a team in our office, and we think it is the most accurate opinion out there. Steve, I just got yours. I haven't had a chance to read it, but I already noticed some, I feel, errors in it. But we're going to have those. One thing we have to, we didn't just look at the law, which we have to do, that's a starting point. We also had to look at what the Supreme Court has said about the law, and how the Supreme Court has interpreted the law, and we have done that. And so we've cited all the cases, you have them in the memorandum, unless you have some specific. Oh, one other thing I did want to say. What I'm going to do in this instance is I do in any time when I'm sitting on the Budget Commission and there's a controversial matter where one of my clients is involved. I have something like 53 statutory clients, but if there's a controversial issue where one of my statutory clients is involved, I will abstain. So I'm going to abstain. I will discuss the memorandum if you want. You all have a copy of that if you have any specific questions. But when it comes to, other than talking about procedure, I'm looking at this to the merits. I'm going to abstain from making any decisions so that there's no appearance of a conflict of interest.
Thank you, Auditor Galloway. I would just like to reiterate, I think the proper course of action is what Auditor Galloway talked about before, sending this to the Attorney General, getting his opinion. And whatever that opinion may be, I think this needs to be a well thought out, everybody needs to work together, come up with something that is fair to everybody and well thought out and researched. So I do believe the proper course of action is to take a step back, let's send this down to the Attorney General and wait for his opinion. Thank you.
Okay, I will, for those that want to speak, when you come up, just, I know who you are, but Mary Beth doing minutes doesn't, so if you would just introduce yourself, who you're with, what entity. We are audio recording this for the purposes of these minutes, but so letting us know specifically who you are, Mary Beth know, will be most helpful. So I'll just open it up to if anybody would like to speak or ask a question or anything of that nature.
Mr. Auditor, Mr. Treasurer, Mr. Prosecutor, thank you for letting us speak here. My name is Stephen Byron. I'm with the Village of Wakefield and the Village of Kirtland Hills. And I want to start by saying you've got the greatest prosecutor in the state of Ohio, and his legal acumen is only outweighed by his honesty, integrity, and a sense of justice. So I put that in writing. I hope that's not what you were disagreeing with.
No, that part I thought that was great.
The best part of the memo. I want to focus everybody's attention on the statute briefly, and then I'll get out of your way because I'm happy with the proposed outcome. 2024 is set, and we should do that. We'll then move on to the next step, whatever that may be after that. And I think another legal opinion, and if the prosecutor could include some of the concepts, even the ones he disagrees with in his question, that might be outstanding. But if we focus on what the statute says, and we all agree this is a statutory procedure, and you must follow the statute, and it's not a contract. It's not a contract where somebody says, hey, I have an exit clause here. You must follow what the statute says. And I agree that there's some Supreme Court cases that are goofy because they don't follow that principle. So at some point, courts are going to have to fix the contradictions that exist between what the statute says and what the case law says. But I'm focused on page 3 of the opinion. I hope everybody, I didn't bring enough copies for everyone, so feel free to share. Any alternative method of apportionment, which is what we deal with here, adopted and approved under this division may be revised, amended, or repealed in the same manner as it may be adopted and approved. What does it require? What does that require? It requires the concurrence of the commissioners, the largest city, and 50+% of the, I believe it's municipalities in the jurisdiction. Municipalities and townships, excuse me. That process has not happened so that the system that's in place, the distribution method that's in place, is still in play under the statute. Unless and until something happens, that's what this body is bound by. And certainly is bound by this year because we haven't changed it this year. If an alternative method of apportionment is adopted and approved under this division, is repealed, which it hasn't been, but if it's repealed, then the undivided local government fund of the county shall be apportioned among the subdivisions eligible to participate in the fund, commencing in the ensuing calendar year under the apportionment provided in 57, 47, 52. That is the only time you would go back to the statutory method is if there's a repealer of the prior system. And why is that? Because prior to 1982, there was significant litigation. Chuck is old enough to know. I got it secondhand from being related to a law director who was involved in litigation. And there was litigation just about every year over the distribution of local government fund. It was a waste of time, it was a waste of money, but I have to be careful what I say because my dad was making money on that. But setting that aside from the fact that it might have been paying for lunch.
And now you are too.
And there you go. And But I should be arguing in favor of the statutory method if that were the case, and I don't think that's the correct interpretation of the law. But we have the opportunity, whenever we want, to have the commissioners, the largest city, and the local subdivisions revisit this. And even though there's a sunset clause in the 1982 provision, I think there may be some value to that, because I think the committee, the entities that signed on to that have said that they won't pursue it except in those 5-year increments. So you see, I say that the sunset clause is applicable and should remain in effect until this current 5-year period is over, and then it could be revisited. But under the statute, there's no limitation on anybody doing anything at any time. So one final point I want to make is, so that you're aware, Wade Hill gets 10% of its revenues from the local government fund. And they would suffer, 10% of their budget for the year would be gone if this were zeroed out. So I don't know that that's what's proposed, but,
Well, first of all, nothing is proposed.
Right.
What we have at this point, to make clear to everybody, is a statutory, or is a legal opinion. Nothing else, other than I will disclose that my office is beginning the process of assembling the master formula spreadsheet of what if a court or the Attorney General or somebody came and said, auditor, you must go by the state statutory formula lacking an alternative. We have started to do that analysis in terms of building that spreadsheet, but that is not completed at this point. So,
Good.
so we're doing our homework
Right.
for the potential eventuality.
And I know on behalf of my clients, they have asked for that information, and I've gotten the same the same answer from your office, which is, we're working on it, we don't have it now. But I think this opinion, my opinion, should give you some comfort that you are acting in accordance with the law. And the one last thing I'll say is, there was an appeal opportunity for the commissioners back in 2012. And if under Ohio law, there's a case called Grava versus Parkland Township that applies to zoning cases, that if there's an administrative appeal available from an administrative action, which is what you guys do, and you don't take it, all the issues that are decided by that are done. And so I would say, I like to use Latin occasionally because my dad paid for my law school, res judicata, and it's not open for discussion at this time. But, again, under the statute, it can be revisited. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Don't be shy. I know somebody else wants to speak.
Hi, Ken Filipiak, representing the City of Mentor. Really more of a question. So back in 2012, I think probably several other people in this room were a part of a process that did commence. Under that sunset clause, it requires the Budget Commission, if an action is taken, in that case it was taken by the county commissioners, to form a committee which would then provide some feedback or recommendation or how, I'm not sure how that was intended to be treated, but that took place, and the recommendation from that committee was that the existing formula remain in place. Curious about if there's a comment on why the Budget Commission did not take any action as a result of that, if it felt as though it did have an option to exercise as a result of that determination by the committee, and where that stands.
Obviously, I was not a member of the Budget Commission in 2012. Mr. Colson would have been a member of that, and I'll let him, if he has any.
I'll answer that as best as I can. I sent a delegate to the Budget Commission back then, so I don't have much of an independent recollection. We looked for the minutes. There was no official meeting that we can determine in any of.
Well, I will say this, that since the distribution of the memo, your memo. We have I've had at least verbally with Mr. Flipiak, and then now today with Mr. Byron's, if you look at the back, there in fact was. And the reason we don't have minutes from that meeting in 2012 is because it was not a Budget Commission meeting. No members of the Budget Commission were in attendance. It was this committee that was appointed by the Budget Commission that met. It turns out, and I'm not sure why, if a copy was, but it was never filed, that there were minutes taken by the then mayor of Eastlake, and we do actually now have those.
Okay, well, that was not in any of the county records. We did not know that. I don't know if that was ever conveyed to the Budget Commission. And then I will look at that and we will review that and see what, if any, effect that has on the opinion. But we scoured all of the county records for any information on that, and there was nothing.
We do have, I have some records that are available.
Whatever you have, if you would
Sure,
give it to us, I would appreciate that.
Sure. A meeting did take place. It was organized by the then county auditor, who actually organized the committee. The committee met, and as I said, they did take an action. And in fact, there was some clarification at that meeting as to how the county's appointed representative to that committee, which at that time was Commissioner Troy, would interpret the action that was taken. So there are some, I'd be curious, I don't have the minutes either. I do have a copy of the letter that formed the committee and the members of the committee. So certainly make all this available.
If you would give us all of that, I would very appreciate it.
Absolutely, thank you.
It's Exhibit C attached to my
All of
document.
it. Thank you.
Yeah, there was again, I can't speak to it, but there was a communication sent to the Budget Commission from Kip Molnar, who was the committee chair. It was sent to Messrs. Colson, Crocker, and Zupancic on April 26th with a copy of the minutes. So we now have those, or they were provided in 2012. But a record, yeah, but we have those now.
Good.
Okay, anybody else? Boy, I feel like I just took all the wind out when I said we're not going to change the formula in 2024. I would just say, for my purposes, in my 14 plus years as a township trustee, I long felt that there needed to be a review and a potential revision of the local government formula in Lake County. I think that it's, from my perspective, it was quite clear that there were a lot of elements to it that were no longer, for lack of a better word, fair, as it related from 1982 to now. My personal opinion is, if you want to know where the political power was in 1982, just look at who the winners and losers in that formula. Now, that's my opinion. Officially, I don't have a role in, and neither does this Budget Commission, unless there was an agreement to terminate it, per Mr. Byron, or if Mr. Colson's opinion is correct. Our role would be to adopt a formula, be it if you all adopted a new alternative formula, or default to the state statutory if Chuck's opinion is upheld. So, and that's why I say at this time there is no action for this body to take, because we have one legal opinion but nothing else. And that's not enough, to be frank, for this county auditor to make such a change. Now, obviously, if I did, it would open up the gateway to allow somebody to sue, to say yes, and somebody obviously could, one way or another, right now, because we all know that if Chuck was right, and that if we were to default to the state statutory formula, there would be new winners and losers. There are people that would look at that formula and say, hey, we could be getting more. I want to force Chris and the Budget Commission to go to the state statutory. What I'd like to do is avoid all of that, obviously. and not be engaged in some sort of, circular firing squad amongst the local governments and all arguing over one formula or another. So that's why I feel it's best at this point that there's no change. Let's let the legal process, review process play out. And then in theory, I may be forced to make a decision on it next for 2025 based on what comes back from the Attorney General or if there's any other case law. But at this time, I'm not going to take any action. This board doesn't have to take any action because making no changes doesn't require us to take a vote or do anything else.
Well, with this, what we did is we went to the board, the Budget Commission records, and we went through every single record from the creation of the Budget Commission to the end. And we found none of this information that has just been brought to light to me today. We will have to look at it and review it to see what, if any, effect it will have on our opinion. I don't know, but we will take a look at it.
Yeah. And the other thing I would caution is there's already a lot of speculation out in the public on what this means for one entity or another. Who could get what. The state statutory formula is very long, it's very complicated, it brings in a lot of different data points. First and foremost, you should all understand that population is not one of them, okay? And so I think it's important for anyone that's thinking about what may or may not be in the future to realize that until we have a real clear understanding of the state statutory formula, I wouldn't just go speculating, right? We've already seen some speculating, and I just kind of want to tamp that down. I can tell you just from my own preliminary look, there was talk of the county getting 50% of the formula. I can tell you right now, just from my early look, that is not the case. My current estimate on that is that the county might, under the state statutory formula, which by the way, only 1 out of 88 currently uses. That's how bad it is. Nobody in this room wants to be on the state statutory formula. But the county would probably, if it was this year, would have been looking at about 27%, is my current estimate based on what we have. But we don't have all the facts and figures. There are some elements to this that we actually would need additional information from all of you in terms of budgetary information that we don't have with the auditor's office. And so what I may be doing is reaching out to each entity to say, can you provide us X, Y, and Z in terms of information, budgetary information that helps us fill in the gaps? Because I know all of you at some point are going to be asking me, tell us what we would be looking at under the state statutory. So my office, we are going to go through that exercise to try to develop that as best we can. And some of that's going to need additional information from all of you. So I just want to kind of warn, I know there was talk amongst the townships of, well, there's no way we could do worse. You say that, but under, for example, the state statutory formula, some of you would do worse. So, Mr. Byron.
One more question. Would the prosecutor think it would be a good prophylaxis for just 1 year for the county commissioners, the city of Mentor, and the political subdivisions who are allowed to vote on this, to pass a motion approving this alternate method for this year and avoid litigation?
Yes, and the reason I say that is somebody could file an appeal. Once the Budget Commission makes the decision for how it's going to distribute it for next year, somebody could appeal that to the Board of Tax Appeals. If they did that, that would eliminate that.
Can this body make that recommendation, and can the auditor's office get information out to request confirmation that this year's distribution will be in accordance with the 1982 formula?
I can send written correspondence stating that that's what we will be using. Obviously, we can't force every entity to, re-adopt it. In essence, is what you're suggesting.
Just confirm. I mean, to eliminate the risk of litigation. Mm-hmm. That might be a good idea.
Okay. Anything we can do to avoid giving more money to lawyers.
Thank you.
All for.
Appreciate
it. And the only other thing that I thought of through this process, and again, this is really going to be because ultimately it's all of you that have to decide. The county commission, the city of Mentor, and then a majority of the remaining entities is, you know, is there interest in having some sort of committee or ad hoc committee to at least look at the local government formula? It's, I mean, frankly, it's been 11 years since the last time it was looked at. You know, is there an interest in a committee being, you know, of folks coming together that might want to at least look at it? Obviously, it's not binding because you all would have to ratify it or not, or present it. So I don't know what the temperature is, if there is an interest. There is obviously an interest from some entities that do want to at least look at it and talk about it. And so I guess I would throw that out to all of you, since I have you all in the room, is, you know, what is the temperature? Is the temperature on that? Mr. Mayor, if you want to speak, come on up. You know, would you want a working committee? Obviously, if there is going to be such a thing, myself and my office would work with you, obviously, as the gatherers of information, that we would, you know, play a role in helping or, you know, advising or whatnot. So.
Dennis Morley, Mayor of the City of Eastlake, and the President of the Lake County Mayors and Managers. So, in between and sitting in the back, and the email I sent you last Thursday, we have discussed that about a committee. So, the mayors and managers would send us some correspondence on that, and we'll take a look at it with our group to see who we want to be on the committee. And also, the email I sent you was, again, there's a lot of rumors out there. I got calls, texts, emails.
I know my response to you was curt and very short, but the reason
was you knew it was me, so
I could do that. But no, the reason for that was because we've assembled, you know, 80% of the formula. Okay, I haven't had a chance to have outside counsel or, like, say, DTE review it. So that's why when you said, can we get what the numbers would be? No, because I don't want to do that yet.
Well, and I know you're not at the next Mayors and Managers meeting, correct?
No.
So I don't know if you want to have a rep to come, or
I
we'll
can
probably talk about it at our next meeting, which is obviously in 2 weeks. But let me know, or just get a hold of me, and I'll talk to the group.
Yeah, if the mayors and managers and the Township Association are interested in some sort of a working committee or an ad hoc committee, listen, I would advise it. I mean, but again, I don't have a say in this. I mean, I think there is interest, and I think there should be some discussion on it. That's me putting on my old local elected official hat. Obviously, the end as auditor, I will execute whatever is I am legally required to execute, whether it's the state statutory, the existing alternative, or a new alternative that you guys come up with.
All right, just get that information in. We'll get that.
You got it.
Thank you, guys.
I would like to say that, yeah, I think everybody needs to wait for the more information on the state statutory formula. But if a committee is formed, I think everyone needs to take a step back and look at it as if this formula is going to be used for the next 20 years. This old one was from, what, 1982? So this is 40 years. You know, we're all not going to be here. So you really have to work together and realize each city depends on the other city for so many resources and so many, you know, the roads and all the other things that are involved. You really have to look at it as, you're not going to be here, but this formula needs to make the county work with all the townships, all the cities. So hopefully everybody can take a step back and just be fair to everybody if a new formula is created.
I think that, you know, the one thing I do know is that we've got good local elected officials that want to do good work as a team. We've seen that again and again with the Mayors and Managers Association, the Township Association. So I have no doubt that if there was a committee to work on this, that it would be a positive exercise. And again, keep in mind, ultimately you all ratify it or you don't. So even if a committee came up with a new formula, it would ultimately be up to all these entities to say yay or nay to it. I see we have another speaker.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Morgan McIntosh, Concord Township trustee, as well as current president of Lake County Township Association. Insomuch as that some of this has come to light based on the diligence of the Lake County Township Association, on behalf of our association, I would respectfully request a committee or at least indicate that we'd be willing to participate cooperatively. Insomuch as this formula is as old as it is, and to Mr. Zern's point about the future and the past. We all know Lake County does not look the same way as it did in 1982, and looking at this thing, for the better part of this year so far, certainly there's a lot of moving pieces to it. And I think to your comment, there's no way to assure where it comes out, but I don't see any harm in a constructive process with all of the communities. We have good elected officials here. We are a community amongst ourselves in Lake County. I know all of us take a lot of pride in our own subdivisions, but also in the county that we work in, live in, and this is something that would be well suited to our time, and I would certainly support and be willing to participate in a process such as that.
Dennis, Morgan, I will, get communication out for each of you. We are having another meeting on the 21st. If in the meantime the associations want to suggest people for an ad hoc committee, I would probably say, maybe show up on the 21st with what those names might be. And I say this, and why I recommend some sort of a working committee is this. Let's just play devil's advocate that Chuck is 100% correct in his legal opinion, and that we should have defaulted to the state statutory formula when no new alternative formula was adopted. I can tell you right now, from the local government standpoint, the vast majority of you do not want to be on that formula. There are required public hearings as it relates to need. The Budget Commission will determine need based on your budgetary situation. Most of the cities, by my current interpretation of it, would take a haircut and lose under the state statutory formula. The county would obviously be the biggest winner. So I think there is a lot of motivation that if somehow there was a court or whatnot were to decide that the opinion presented by Prosecutor Colson is 100% correct, you all should be motivated to at least work on a new alternative formula. And that doesn't mean you couldn't all just adopt the exact same one from 1982, but I would stress enough of having already done enough homework since it sort of kicked off that the state statutory formula is not a place any of you all want to be. And to me, the biggest proof in the pudding on that is that 87 out of 88 counties have said, we don't want any part of that. So there's a reason for that. So that's why I encourage the idea of an ad hoc or a working committee to sort of tackle this. And look, in the end, if it's decided that the 1982 formula is still in place, there's nothing wrong with the work having been done, right? It can go on a shelf to such time that maybe there's other legislative motions to actually officially review it.
I'd like to make just one comment along that line. A statute was just passed, the governor signed it, a bill just passed, I think last month, it goes into effect in October, which will require every budget commission within a year to review the alternate plans and to look at them. It just says review them, but we're going to be statutorily obligated to do that coming up very shortly. And this might not be a bad time to start doing that on our own now.
Yeah, so just so you all know, and you probably are aware, but in the last budget, which is not yet in effect, we have 1 year as a budget commission to have a meeting such as this to discuss the alternative local government formula. Again, the law says we have to have a meeting, which I frankly just interpret it as the legislature getting together 88 county bitch sessions, because they don't also put in any sort of and thou shalt do X with that meeting. It's just everybody get together and discuss it. Okay, great, then what? What are you guys looking for down there in Columbus? But to Chuck's point, we will be having that meeting. So we'll be convening just like this again at some point. And why it may be advisable to have some sort of a working committee, at least looking at it and reviewing and coming up with some ideas, etc. Anything else? Come on up, just
a question. What does that committee look like? What do you want on the committee?
Again, ultimately, it would really be up to you guys. I mean, my proposal on that would be that, based on the current alternative formula, that you would have a representative of the commissioners You would have the county auditor, since we're going to be the ones working on all the numbers. You would have the city of Mentor, probably 2 additional city representatives, 2 township representatives, and a representative of the villages. So that would get you to what, an 8 or 9 person committee, which I think is a workable size. I would imagine that the mayors and managers and the villages and the cities and the townships would all come together and figure out who they would want to be on that working committee. That's what I would propose. Ultimately, you're all going to be the deciders of if you want to have a committee that's everyone in this room. I mean, that might be quite chaotic, but you know, that would be my recommendation. Something manageable that has a couple representatives from basically in essence each entity or classification of local government. Anything else? Anybody? Come on up.
Jim Lyons, actually, I'm representing Matter on the Lake here.
But Chuck seems to have started this by his opinion, and again, it's all in the room. And Steve has come up with an opinion, and Steve is a well-respected attorney whose opinion many times is correct. Will Chuck agree to reconsider his opinion based on the input from Steve, the new documents that are being supplied to to Chuck, and also any other, legal people that may want to provide, some input to this opinion? And if Chuck then decides, as the legal representative to the Budget Commission, that he was incorrect, okay, and that the statutory formula still applies, the alternative formula still applies, is there any reason to even get an Attorney General's opinion at that point in time? If Chuck had taken a look at this and said, no, exactly what Steve Byron had said, we wouldn't be here. We would still be, going. Now, that doesn't mean that a community out in in Lake County, that does receive money, that disagrees, doesn't have a right to appeal that. But then it's on them, okay? But instead, you guys are now making the decision that the alternative formula applies, and then it would be up to them to challenge it, and you don't have to do any of this other stuff, okay? Except when I talk about stuff in terms of forming committees and doing all that in order to revisit and start having people, take a bunch of votes. So my question is to Chuck, and I hope it's an elected question, will you agree to reconsider, and will you give some time to other lawyers maybe to, comment on, what you had to say and or what Steve had to say?
I thought I already made it clear, sure.
Okay, I guess I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
Because I thought we were still on the 1 week deadline to get it to the Attorney General's, and I don't know if that's enough time.
1 week deadline.
Well, I thought that you said that you were going to have a...
He said it would take his office probably about another week to finish putting everything
A week
together.
or two.
It wasn't a deadline.
Prepare it.
Okay.
There's no deadline. We're open to any information, any facts. And so whatever we have, we will look at it and review it. But I do think, especially with the legal requirement coming up on us, on the Budget Commission, to hold another meeting like this to review the alternate formula. The legislature has passed that, or the governor has signed it, that this is a good opportunity to maybe start that. And that the current plan is substantially out of date, is not fair to some political subdivisions, and overly generous to other political subdivisions. It would be a good time to sit down, and hopefully everybody can sit down and agree and come up with a really good plan. If this is the impetus for that, I think that's a win for everybody.
So, but the question becomes on that, is what Steve Byron said, is how you change the alternate plan, whether or not it has to be done in the same manner in which it was adopted, or if it did sunset, which is what you said in your memo, okay.
Well, that's only a matter of timing. If Mr. Byron is correct, then the timing would be, what is it, 5 years from...
We're in year 1.
We're in year 1. So in 4 years, somebody could give a notice, and we'd be right here where we are now.
But as
so that's a matter of timing.
Right. But as the legal representative for the Budget Commission and for Lake County, if they go ahead
and they distribute the money per the alternate formula. Right now, as Mr. Zern and Mr. Galloway have indicated, you're okay with those distributions being made as the statutory legal representative. Is that correct?
No, I can't be okay with anything. Let's make this clear what I am. I'm a lawyer. I don't set policy. My clients set policy. So I am going to abstain from any decision they make on this because there is a conflict. I'm assuming from what was just said that the Budget Commission will adopt the alternate form, the 1982 alternate formula for the year 2024. That does now, if they do that, the law says that that decision is final, except if there is an abuse of discretion or the proper formula wasn't applied.
Right.
So then that decision could be appealed by any of the entities to the Board of Tax Appeals. I have no control of it. Mr. Byron came up with the idea of a prophylactic that, getting everybody to agree, may eliminate those appeals.
Right. Good prophylactic. So my question then, just procedurally, is do they have to vote today on the alternate formula?
My opinion is no, because it's in place. As far as I'm concerned, as an auditor, the one that's going to do the calculation, it's in place. That if I was going to do something different, that would require us to take a vote.
The time for appeal would start when they make the decision for the distribution.
Okay, how do they make the decision? Do they have to make the decision by a vote? That's the question.
They should.
Yeah.
Okay, so they have to vote today to make that
Not
decision?
today.
No.
Well, don't they have a 10-day period in order to make these decisions?
We've established the political subdivision tax budget hearing date for August 21st.
Okay, so they would have to vote at that time then, correct? Okay, that would be, set in stone at that time if they agree to do what they've said, correct? Set in stone, subject to an appeal?
Correct.
Correct, okay. So, just one other procedural question. Has there been such a vote in all of the prior 10 years, since 2012, approving the budget, including the alternative formula, during those time periods?
Well, every year.
There was. So there was a vote approving it in all of those prior years, which goes to Mr. Byron's point of the res judicata. So if nobody appealed it, then it was set in stone at that point in time, correct?
Yeah, and generally, in my short time here, it's been a nothing burger meeting. We sign off on it, sign the proper documentation. None of you are almost never there. So, and then you've got your money under the alternative formula, and no one has challenged it.
Correct, okay. I'm just trying to make, I think so everybody agrees that the money from all of the prior years, is not subject to any type of a refund based on this alternate.
It is Mr. Colson's opinion that's not the case.
Gotcha.
That was my first question when you put that memo in my lap.
But that goes to what Steve Byron said about the res judicata, okay, in that particular case. So, okay, those are my questions, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
And that was literally the first question I asked Chuck after he handed me this memo, and I was like, well, you really don't like me, do you, Chuck? And he just put a grenade in my lap. But honestly, the approach that my approach, and I know this board's approach is just, finding a constructive path, because we have sort of an open legal question right now, right? And an open legal question is not enough for me to change the way the distribution is going to happen in 2024, under my opinion. And unless one of y'all challenges that, I guess then that would be the way that would go down. But that's why we're here. That's why we distributed the memo immediately. That's why you were all given notice. That's why we decided to expand this meeting, which is normally not particularly interesting, setting a hearing date, to get you all in the room, make you aware of it, and let you know that I do think that, we've heard from Mayor Morley and Trustee McIntosh that there is interest in at least looking at it, and I think there is a constructive means of moving forward. So, even if ultimately the result of the memo is, a constructive process, then that's not such a bad thing. So, but you can all sleep well tonight, at least knowing that your formula is not going to be upended for 2024. So, anything else? Boy, I thought there'd be a lot more talking. Surprising. Michael, anything else?
No, I think we're proceeding in the right direction, and also in light of the new information that was provided, I do think we need to wait for Prosecutor Colson's relook at the additional documentation and wait for that. But I think we're proceeding in the right direction. We need to form a committee and see if everybody can work together. If there's something better for the county, we need to research it. That was a great opportunity.
Okay. Anything else?
Kelly, do you have any thoughts?
All right, well, I'm going to adjourn this meeting, and the time is 11:52 a.m.